I'm going to expose to you the simple truth of 15.3. But before I do, you're going to need to understand just how important this is. You need to understand how many people are ignorant. F1 knows it's reported that there were 108.7 million viewers who watched Abu Dhabi 2021. Prior to Abu Dhabi 2021, who had heard of 15.3? And the answer is nobody. Of them 108.7 million viewers, there would have been a handful who would have read the sporting regulations. So everybody is reliant on what they've been told by the media, how it has been explained to them. I'm going to explain to you the truth. And what people need to understand is 15.3 is not a standalone thing in isolation. It is in conjunction with all of the other regulations. These regulations that start here, the 2021 Formula One regulations, these were issue number 13, published on the 8th of December. So these were the ones applicable at Abu Dhabi. Now, the sporting regulations are updated every year and there's amendments throughout the season. But these regulations apply to all races throughout that season. And firstly, what you need to do before you go anywhere is understand the purpose and what it's all about. And if you look at this, 1.2, these sporting regulations apply to the whole calendar year, referred to in the title, and to the championship taking place within that calendar year. So, all these regulations apply to Grand Prix. Each Grand Prix is the same type of event. There's no such thing as a season finale that's different. They are all Grand Prix. General undertakings. All drivers, competitors and officials participating in the championship undertake on behalf of themselves, their employees, agents and suppliers to observe all the provisions as supplemented or amended of the International Sporting Code, the Formula One technical regulations, the Formula One financial regulations and the present sporting regulations, together referred to as the regulations. So if you are going to compete in Formula One, you're agreeing to comply by the rules, and those include the sporting rules, the technical rules, which means the design of your car, the financial rules, which means cost cap, you don't overspend, you don't breach the budget, and this is all underpinned by the FIA International Sporting Code. And here is that International Sporting Code. And so what you need to look at is the general principles, because this is what underpins the sport of motor racing, the sport of Formula One. So as we go down here, and all we need to do is look at the generals at the start, because this tells you the entire picture. 1.1.1, the FIA should be the sole international sporting authority entitled to make and enforce regulations based on the fundamental principles of safety and sporting fairness for the encouragement and control of automobile competitions and to organise FIA international championships. So the fundamental point of this revolves around sporting fairness, and this is to every competitor in the event. They've got their own rules here, whereby the FIA shall be the final international court of appeal for the settlement of disputes arising therefrom, it being acknowledged that the FIM, which is Motorcycle Federation, shall exercise the same powers for 2- and 3-wheel events to the fullest extent permitted by applicable law. Neither the FIA nor any of its officers, agents, employees, directors or officials shall be liable to any other party for any claim, cost, damage or loss resulting from any action, decision or omission by FIA or its officers, agents, employees, directors or officials in connection with their duties, except for willful misconduct or fraud. Now, willful misconduct or fraud. The FIA are saying we're not going to be held accountable by anybody for our decisions unless you can prove that we've acted corruptly or fraudulently. Okay, we'll see about that, but that's to come. But this is key. Before we go to 15.3, the International Sporting Code 1.2. 1.2.1. So that the above powers may be exercised in a fair and equitable manner, the FIA has drawn up the International Sporting Code, which includes all appendices thereto. The purpose of the code is to regulate, encourage and facilitate motorsport. It will never be enforced so as to prevent or impede a competition or the participation of a competitor, save where the FIA concludes that it is necessary for the safe, fair or orderly conduct of motorsport. So what underpins all of the regulations is sporting fairness for all competitors in that event. So this notion of interpretation, if you derive an outcome from a given interpretation that results in a situation which is clearly not fair, you've got the interpretation wrong. It is as simple as that. All the regulations are underpinned by the notion of sporting fairness, and therefore it is very easy to derive the correct application of said regulation. What they want you to believe from 15.3 is that essentially there's a set of rules, but one of those rules means the race director can break those rules. That is the biggest myth that has been fed to the world. There's a set of rules, but one of those rules is that the referee can do what the hell they want. Absolute ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. An absolute lie. So I'm going to take you through it, and I'm going to show you how this then relates to Article 48, which is the use of the safety car. So, 15.3. The clerk of the course shall work in permanent consultation with the race director. The race director shall have overriding authority in the following matters, and the clerk of the course may give orders in respect of them only with his express agreement. So, we have a clerk of the course who is responsible for the safety of the race circuit. The race director needs to work with him because the race director is in charge of running the event. And to run the event, you need a safe race circuit, hence where these two people need to be interacting and working together. So, A, the control of practice, sprint qualifying sessions and race, adherence to the timetable, and if he deems it necessary, the making of any proposal to the stewards to modify the timetable in accordance with the code or sporting regulations. Nobody's really concerned about that. In order for these things to take place, in order for practice sessions to take place, in order for qualifying to take place, in order for the race to take place, the track needs to be safe. The clerk of the course is responsible for ensuring it's safe, declaring it safe, and saying to the race director, yes, I'm content it's safe. You can carry out whatever it is you need to carry out. Simple as that. That's all it's there for. B, the stopping of any car in accordance with the code or sporting regulations. So, the race director can stop a car if it wants to stop a car in accordance with the code or regulations. A race director can order that a car stops. It can black flag a car. Not a problem. We understand that. C, the stopping of practice, suspension of sprint qualifying session or suspension of the race in accordance with the sporting regulations if he deems it unsafe to continue, and ensuring the correct restart procedure is carried out. So again, the race director has it in his discretion to stop a session. If he decides there's a reason to stop a session, he is entitled to do so. These are his powers. Quite simple. D, the starting procedure. The race director has the discretion over the starting procedure. We know that Formula One starts are generally a standing start with the grid formed up. However, if the race director deems it not the right thing to do due to a safety concern, he can start that event with a safety car rolling start. That is his discretion. That is his discretion. We saw that with the Belgian parade. What we didn't see with the Belgian parade was it ever turning into a race. That was never a race because the safety car was never withdrawn. Hence, to even declare that as being any form of race or Grand Prix is an utterly ridiculous notion. However, had they have gone on track behind the safety car, gone round for a few laps, dried the track out were it possible, and then got going, that's all fine. That's within the race director's discretion to begin the event like that. E. The use of the safety car, and this is the thing where everybody has been led to believe the race director can do whatever he wants with the safety car. Whatever he wants with the safety car, the other rules and regulations don't apply. The race director has the overriding authority over the safety car, and he can do what he wants. False. Read it again. We'll start from the top. The clerk of the course shall work in permanent consultation with the race director. The race director shall have overriding authority in the following matters, and the clerk of the course may give orders in respect of them only with his express agreement. So the race director shall have overriding authority over the use of the safety car. What does that mean? That means the race director can decide whether or not to deploy a safety car. That's all it means. The race director has overriding authority over the use of the safety car, when or when not to use the safety car. That's all it means. When you do use the safety car, there are a set of procedures that you must carry out once you've decided to use it. And hence, we'll now go on to 48. But 15.3, all it means is that the race director is the person who has the authority to decide whether or not to deploy the safety car. Once you deploy it, you have to follow the regulations dictated by Article 48. Now, when you come down to 48, now this is just in the 2021 regulations. In the 2022 regulations, the safety cars have come under Article 55, I believe it is. So each year the numbers may get amended, but where we're in consideration is the 2021 regulations. If you go down 48.1, 2, 3, 4, they are they're just descriptions of when the safety car, the standard safety car usage, such as prior to the race is happening. It's when you start deploying that safety car due to a safety incident, you then have to carry out the following procedures. And these come down here. When the order is given to deploy the safety car, the message "safety car deployed" will be sent to all competitors by the official messaging system. All FIA light panels will display SC, and all marshal posts will display waved yellow flags and SC boards for the duration of the intervention. No car may be driven unnecessarily slowly, erratically, or in a manner which could be deemed potentially dangerous to other drivers or any other person at any time whilst a safety car is deployed. This will apply whether any such car is being driven on the track, the pit entry, or the pit lane. The safety car will join the track with its orange lights illuminated, regardless of where the leader is. All competing cars must reduce speed and form up in line behind the safety car, no more than 10 car lengths apart. In order to ensure that drivers reduce speed sufficiently from the time which all competitors have been sent the safety car deployed message by the official messaging system until the time that each car crosses the first safety car line for the second time, drivers must stay above the minimum time set by the FIA ECU at least once in each marshalling sector and at both the first and second safety car lines. And it defines the marshalling sector. So this is the notion of drivers having to drive to a delta for that first lap and a bit after safety car deployment. after which they can speed up slightly to make sure they catch the back of the snake. But initially, when on the notification that the safety car has been deployed, all cars have to slow to the given delta. That's all that means. You'll get penalised if you don't do that. Now, this is the key. This is about no overtaking. You are not allowed to overtake. That is standard. You don't need to give that message out. Okay, but these are the times where you are allowed to overtake if a driver is signalled to do so. So if the safety car gives the green light to wave cars by, so if it's picked up cars which aren't the leader first, it will wave them by sometimes if it deems it safe to do so. That is one of the considerations. It tells you when the drivers using the pit lane, whether they're eligible to overtake at certain points. That's all that goes down with 48.8. And it takes you through A to H, whereby it gives the conditions whereby changes of positions are deemed acceptable under a safety car situation. They're not relevant to Abu Dhabi, so we'll bypass them at the moment. 48.9. When ordered to do so by the clerk of the course, the observer in the car will use a green light to signal to any cars between it and the leader that they should pass. These cars will continue at reduced speed without overtaking until they reach the line of cars behind the safety car. Now, before we consider Abu Dhabi 2021, let's consider the races where cars have not been lapped. When cars have not been lapped, what you have is cars strung out around the track, all on the same lap, and what you have is competitors, the first place competitor, down to the last running competitor, and there might be 3 miles separating them. And what happens is when that safety car is deployed, that safety car comes out on track. If it collects the first place competitor, all of the remaining competitors eventually bunch up behind that first place car in the correct race order. If that safety car is deployed and the first place car has gone past the pit entrance at that stage, and the safety car comes out, for example, in front of position 10, then position 10 has to wait behind the safety car initially. The safety car may put the green lights on to wave them cars immediately past. It may not, depending on what the situation is. If that's the case, first down to 9th is already ahead of this situation on the track, and they will eventually make it around that track and link up with the back, sitting behind the last competitor. So what will need to happen, nobody's been lapped at this situation. What will need to happen at some point is the safety car will give the green light to position 10 down to the last remaining runner, release them, and they will make it around the track to reform this snake in the correct race order, first down to the last remaining competitor. That is the procedure. That is in a situation where cars have not been lapped. That is what it has to happen. If you look at 48.10, this is the purpose. And it says except under Article 48.12. And this just determines what you do in a situation when cars have been lapped. But when cars are not lapped, this is what you do. The safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. The safety car shall be used at least until the leader is behind it and all remaining cars are lined up behind him. Once behind the safety car, the leader must keep within 10 car lengths. Okay, and that's all it means. It means that once you deploy the safety car, you have to do this. 15.3 gives the race director discretion as to whether or not to put the safety car out on track to deal with a situation. Once he's chosen to do that, what he then has to do is this procedure. He has to keep that safety car on track until at least the leader is behind the safety car and all of the other competitors are lined up, one behind the other, behind the leader. They're in the correct race order. Now 48.12, all that does is tell you how to achieve that when cars have been lapped in that event. And we're going to go down to that now. So, if we have got this situation where the race director has used 15.3, he's decided he wants to use the safety car. We're now in a situation where he needs to use procedure 48.12 because you have to perform this before you can resume racing. This is the procedure that must be carried out once he's decided to use the safety car. And that is this: when it is safe. So when the clerk of the course has reported back to the race director that it is now safe, the track is now safe, the message will go to the competitors: lapped cars may now overtake. Any cars which have been lapped are required to pass the cars on the lead lap and the safety car. Now, the reason that any was used is because it's any cars which meet the qualifying criteria. That being, they were lapped at the point in time the incident occurred, or only got lapped by the time that the safety car passed the first safety car line for the second time. If they became lapped after that point, they are not eligible to unlap. That is why the use was any, not all, because there might be cars that are not eligible to unlap. When we turn to Abu Dhabi, all of those 8 cars were eligible. So, having overtaken the cars on the lead lap and the safety car, these cars should then proceed around the track at an appropriate speed without overtaking and make every effort to take up position at the back of the line of cars behind the safety car. Whilst they are overtaking, and in order to ensure this may be carried out safely, cars on the lead lap must not weave. Unless the clerk of the course considers the presence of the safety car is still necessary, once the last lapped car has passed the leader, the safety car will return to the pits at the end of the following lap. It is as simple as that. Before you go racing, the lapped cars are released. They are given 1 lap of the track with which to catch the back of the pack in order to restore the correct race order, and ideally all the competitors be in a line, bunched up, one behind the other, correct race order, with all advantages between all cars nullified. That is the purpose of the rule, underpinned by the FIA International Sporting Code. That is the purpose. This notion of 15.3 giving the race director to do whatever he wants to produce some sort of 2-car race-off is absolutely ridiculous. And yet we have thousands, literally thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people believing that that is what that regulation means. That is the disinformation that you have been fed. Absolute lies. Absolute lies. Created to disorientate you. Created to give you a false belief. Created to excuse them and their corruption. Created to make, by them, to make you think that what they did was somehow excusable. But legally, you could interpret it to be this, when that is absolutely not the case. It is fraudulent, it is corrupt, it is contrived, purposely done. And the simplicity of the final bit: if the clerk of the course considers track conditions are unsuitable for overtaking, the message "overtaking will not be permitted" will be sent to all competitors via the official messaging system. The message that he put out in Abu Dhabi was lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That's not even an official message. Lapped cars will not be overtaken is an ambiguous message that doesn't mean anything. Does that mean that if you're not lapped, you are allowed to overtake? You're only allowed to race if you're one of the not lapped cars. But if you are lapped, you're not allowed to race because you're not allowed to overtake. That is why that's not in the regulations. That's why that message put out in Abu Dhabi is a complete lie. But they are lying to you. They are lying to you because they are corrupt. It is a corrupt agenda. And then what they tried to do with what Red Bull were allowed to present in a fraudulent appeal is that when the clerk of the course decided it's safe to call in the safety car, the message safety car in this lap will be sent, and that overrides everything. Not true. Before you go racing, you have to carry out the procedures that are in 48.9, 10 or 12 when lapped cars are in a race, and you have to achieve those conditions before you go racing. Those conditions being that the competitors are in the correct race order, nose to tail, ready to start racing again. Sporting fairness to all competitors as dictated by the FIA International Sporting Code. The notion that a race director can have the overriding authority to produce an outcome that is corrupt and just separates out two competitors is a complete lie. The reason they wrote the regulations like this is because they inserted this notion of the lapped cars that were released being given one further lap of the safety car because they wanted to speed up the process. In the early days of the regulation, Charlie Whiting would keep that safety car circulating for maybe 2 laps, and there were complaints that it seemed to be taking a lot of time out of the race. So they reduced that to a minimum of 1 lap, with the discretion of the race director to keep that safety car on track for longer if necessary, if those release cars had not caught up sufficiently. And when I say sufficiently, had regained position to be at least within the time difference they were behind the competitor they were previously challenging prior to the incident. So you take the example of Abu Dhabi. Lando Norris, the first of those release cars, was 12 seconds behind Gasly before Latifi crashed. So once released as a lapped car, as soon as he was within 12 seconds of Gasly, then sporting fairness has been restored. You cannot leave Lando Norris more than 12 seconds behind Gasly as a result of somebody else crashing. So as long as that condition is achieved, he doesn't have to be fully caught up. But that is the restriction. The race director has that discretion to keep that car on track in these circumstances to ensure that sporting fairness. He doesn't have the discretion to not follow that process and obliterate sporting fairness. That is the truth of the matter. Michael Massey knows that. Michael Massey demonstrated he knows that by performing 2 laps of the safety car beyond the release of lapped cars in Spain 2019, Brazil 2019, Sakir 2020 and Eiffel 2020. He knows exactly the purpose of that safety car. That is what 15.3 is. That is what it applies to. Everything else is a lie, a constructed narrative by a corrupt sport and a corrupt media presenting that narrative to you, and it's conditioned the minds and incited the conflict. Please like this video if it has taught you something about 15.3 that you previously didn't understand, and check out the other videos on this channel. It exposes the true level of corruption in Abu Dhabi in ways you will not see elsewhere. 2 years have passed and no media has exposed the truth about Abu Dhabi, the most corrupt sporting event we've ever witnessed. It is truly disgusting, and these perpetrators need to be held to account for what they did. So please like, subscribe, and look out for the future content which is exposing every aspect of that fix. Thanks for your time.